Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Melanin Margin, the weekly chat show where conversations about race are never off the table. We're your hosts, Quaviondre Williams.
And Daquon Wilson.
So let's get into this week's conversation. What's hot on the table this week?
Grammy nominated singer Mario recently released a new single, Main One, which featured rapper Tory Lanez following the momentum of a successful versus against the singer Omarion. However, many found this collab strange considering that Mario criticized Lanez, who has been charged with felony assault and shooting of rapper Megan the Stallion back in 2020, tweeting, quote, "This Megan and Tory situation has me in awe. Black men, we gotta learn to how to control our ego, anger, etc. Protect Black women, heal Black men, love and respect each other." End quote. Twitter users expressed their disappointment, such as one who tweeted, quote, "What gets me is Mario went from Black men, we gotta control our egos and do better by Black women in reference to Tory Lanez just to turn around and my bro him a year later. Niggas are performative," end quote. Partner with women's empowerment platform, Femit Forward, and own a live stream addressed the controversy, stating, quote, "As an independent artist doing his thing, it's a lot of artists that don't work as hard as he do, regardless of whatever. The music is what it is. The music is what you love people for. If y'all fuck with the music, fuck with it. If you don't, we're just going to keep creating," end quote. Despite Mario's statement, many still believe the singer is alienating and disregarding his large female fan base. So that begs the question, do you think announcing the collaboration with Tory Lanez amidst the controversy was a smart move for Mario?
So we know that musicians and other artists are not always in control of what projects they release, who they work with, or what tracks will or won't be published.
Right.
Oftentimes when musicians are signed to a record label, they have a team, that works with them to create their image and sound. There are also artists whose contracts are so ironclad that they have virtually no say in how their music or artistry is used. Also, regardless of the artist's wishes, the record company could have already cut the checks for an artist feature, and
Mhm.
because they don't want to lose, those hundreds of thousands of dollars, they may release the song anyway. I mean, there are so many variables to consider when accusing an artist of working with a problematic person. So I just wanted to make sure people take that into account before they start to pop off. However, in this case, I don't think that's what's going on. People were calling Mario out for working with Tory Lanez, but they were specifically calling out the hypocrisy of him taking a firm stance against Tory Lanez and now suddenly defending his artistry. I mean, baby, how are you driving down a one-way street and still end up in the wrong direction? Like, no one was talking about Tory Lanez's artistry, nor was this conversation about separating the art from the artist. This was about you, Mario, and what you seemingly allowed. And let's just say, for argument's sake, that this was the record company that released the music. Whenever artists have, recorded songs with people who have recently been revealed to be problematic, they will either remove the artist from the song or they will issue some kind of public statement distancing themselves by explaining that this wasn't their wish to release the song, or they clarify that they were not involved in the production process. There were so many routes that Mario could have taken, but he chose to completely ignore the conversation. So to answer the question, no, it was not a smart move, because you can't say that you're for believing and protecting Black women and uplift and defend the very same man who was accused of attacking a Black woman. But Daquon, I want to pass the question back to you. I mean, do you think this is a smart move? And also, do you think that you can both support and protect Black women while also working with men accused of being abusers?
That is truly the question of the minutes, the seconds, the decade, even, because it's so important to think about how we position ourselves in these sort of conversations. When you take a stance against somebody, you should be firm in that stance. You can't have the best of both worlds when it comes to protecting Black women, but also, promoting the same people who are harming Black women. And, regardless of, this is an ongoing case, so this is all alleged and the truth
Mm-hmm.
will come out eventually. But when you publicly stand against somebody like Tory Lanez in the past, just a full 2 short years ago, and now when he's done nothing to change or reconcile or do anything to apologize or address it, or has even doubled down, like talking about Megan and talking about her character, demeaning her, all of these different things, and doing things to intimidate her. That's not somebody who has changed enough to be like, you know what? He changed now. And I think that it's also very important that we understand that it's so important to address what is going on
Mm-hmm.
in this situation. My biggest frustration with Mario's statement is that he's like, oh, whatever, regardless of whatever. And it's like, no, take a step back, address the actual situation, because that's really what you're going to have to reckon with. Can you actually say what the situation going on is about and still justify these actions? Because so often we see that when it comes to people who are in no way connected to us, we're the first ones to call them out because we have no connection to them. But
Mm-hmm.
so often people who have, problematic friends or family members or,
Mm-hmm.
brothers in whatever, they don't want to call those people close to them out because they're a friend or something like that, and that's not how it works. I know if I ever did something problematic, Andre would call me out and I would take that criticism, internalize that, and move forward with it because I know she's not doing it maliciously. I know she cares about me as a person and what I'm doing with my career and artistry and all of that. So we need to learn as a society how to call out the people around us, because we can't say that we are for a certain cause but not calling out people who are going against that cause, even if they are within our circles.
I completely agree. I think that this particular situation, we all obviously we don't know all the details and we're not here to, say this person's guilty or they did X, Y, and Z. But what I will say is that, the behavior that we've seen from Tory Lanez so far isn't really giving innocent.
Right.
And that's as much as I'll say on that part. But I do think that there is something to be said about Black men holding other Black men accountable for, the shit that they're doing and what they're saying. And oftentimes we see this kind of the circle of, oh, okay, this is my best friend, or this is my good Judy, or whatever. I'm not gonna, tell them anything they're doing wrong. I'm gonna stand by you 10 toes down or whatever. To me, that's not a real friendship. That's not a
No.
real relationship. To me, that's a yes man or a yes woman. That's somebody who's just there to, be with you in the fun times and or whatever. To me, a real friend is somebody who will call you out when you fuck up. You need people in your life who are going to hold you accountable when you mess up so that you can grow as a person. If you're around people and all of y'all are just living life and no one is ever doing anything wrong or no one has ever made a mistake or whatever the case may be, then what that is showing me that you are in a very immature kind of relationship, because mature
Right.
relationships go through changes. They go through, they evolve, they shift, and people are able to grow with them. You're able to grow with a person. And I think that oftentimes when we see things like this specifically, even with Mario's response, it was giving very much so, I don't care about all that. This is the art, this is
Right.
the music and whatever. And it's like you can't separate those two in this particular situation. You have to recognize why people were upset. You have to recognize what the issue is. Even if you don't think that he did it, recognize that there is an issue that's happening here, that Black
Right.
women are under attack. And even if you didn't want to take him out of the situation, or you didn't want to you know say anything about it or anything like that. You could have even just said simply, any money we get from this, we're going to donate to X, Y, and Z, or I'm going to pledge this amount of money, or just simply saying, I recognize the allegations. I don't have all the information, but I want people to know that that working with him was not my decision, or if it was your decision, maybe this was probably something that was already in the works a long time ago. Contracts were signed, things like that. Just, clarifying that I'm not trying to uplift an abuser if that's the case, because we don't know exactly. We haven't, the court case hasn't fully been done yet. No one has been fully, whatever. But I think that even just simply stating distancing yourself to a degree to say, listen, we don't, even if I don't have all the facts and I don't have all the things, but I want you all to know that this is the reason why this song is being released. And I recognize what the issues are. And I want you to understand X, Y, and Z,
Exactly. And I think it's kind of mitigating risk when it comes to certain things.
Yeah.
We've talked a little bit about this before in our like Fallen Stars episode, but there's something to kind of mitigating the risk when working with somebody problematic, because being problematic and having good artistry are not mutually exclusive. They can exist within the same person. So, if I listen to, somebody's music on Spotify, like I am giving them a fraction of a cent. But if I'm playing that music in a public space where there could be people who were affected by how, something that somebody said or something that somebody did, and it triggers some trauma within them because they went through something or they empathize with the person, with the victim in the situation, that causes a lot larger of an impact than, a single stream, which most music artists rely on things like tours and merch and all of that stuff to really get their revenue.
Yeah, and I think that it's just about also recognizing too, in this case, unfortunately, even if it wasn't Mario's decision to be with Tory Lanez in this song, I think that taking a firm stance of protecting Black women needs to be consistent. You can't be wishy-washy like that. You need to be very firm in saying, if this, and I would hope that you would think that even if it was something that you couldn't control, you would make sure you say to people, listen, this was not my decision. I didn't release this. This was the production company. I stand and I believe Black women. You know what I'm saying? I think it feels hypocritical because on the one hand, you made a firm stance and you made a firm statement a while back, and then now you are going back on it. And it's like, so are you going back on protecting Black women as well? You know what I'm saying? Like, if you're not even going to mention, you're not even going to bring it up, you're saying, oh, it's about the artistry. Fuck what they did. Oh, so we're just going to act like you're not working with somebody who is well known to be right now a problematic person and is well known to be accused of abusing a Black woman. So it's just, it feels like very much so, like people were saying, it was very performative. It was very much so like, I want to jump on this train at the time to make it seem like I care so that I can get the Black woman to follow me, but also turn right around and be like, fuck them people, I'm gonna go back, I'm gonna get this check. It really feels like that. Again, I don't know his direct feelings or whatever, but that's what it's projecting. It's kind of like virtue signaling, where it's like, I'm gonna pretend like all those fucking companies who are like, yeah, gay rights, and for that 1 month, and they're like, okay, fuck them motherfucking fags. Anyway, back to our Christian shit that we was doing before. Very much BLM in my tab, BLM, and fully doing all kind of racist shit. So it's just like it gives very virtue signaling and not actually caring about what's going on.
Right.
Yeah. So I think that there's definitely, in this case, I think Mario definitely needs to be held accountable. I think that in that sense, he needs to at least recognize the elephant in the room and recognize that there is an issue happening, and just make sure that he reaffirms what he said or clarifies what the song happened and all that stuff,
Yeah.
Now, Emmy-nominated actress and comedian Leslie Jones recently shared her thoughts about the 4th of July in a video where she said, quote, I would say happy 4th of July, but it's not really a happy 4th of July, is it? Because 4th of July is supposed to stand for independence, but this ain't the land of the free. Y'all took away women's rights. Y'all are trying to take away voters' rights. And it's hard to say happy 4th of July because it feels like we're going back to slavery, end quote. However, her comments were not well received by the likes of Jason Whitlock and Shamika Michelle, who shared their thoughts on the talk show Fearless with Jason Whitlock, where Michelle stated, quote, "Where else, if not America, can you resemble Great Ape and have the success that Leslie Jones has had? If we went back to slavery, just like myself, Leslie, you would be in the field, and as a 6-foot woman that's actually built like a man, you would probably be working alongside the ox. I am just sick of people like Leslie Jones pushing this oppressive mind state that, oh, we don't have rights," end quote. What are your thoughts, Daquon, about Miss Shamika Michelle insulting Leslie Jones's appearance?
Let me just put the glasses on because it's time to read. I, I think the question of the hour is, who is Shamika Michelle? Because no, seriously, let's answer the question, who is Shamika Michelle? Because comments on appearance, which is the low-hanging fruit when despicable members of the human race know that they can't compete where they don't compare, tells us everything we need to know about her. We have Leslie Jordan, who is a literal icon. She has, hosted the Olympics. She's gone on to be in so many movies, get so many accolades. Leslie Jones has a resume that is real long.
Mm-hmm.
Meanwhile, Michelle, Shamika, your resume consists of being a guest on a talk show because your name is not in Fearless with Jason Whitlock. You also have a book with no major nor minor accolades. And you have the occasional think piece where you spread your delusional drivel. So it's clear that your callous comments are just a way to leech off the success and clout that you will never have. You're intimidated by a Black woman who's beautiful both inside and out, who was able to make it using her own talent and amazing personality, neither of which you possess and therefore can do. And let me remind you that the same people that you tap dance for don't care about you. They never have, and they never will. So, with all that being said, I think that this is a grade A textbook example of a pick me because there's no reason that Shamika Michelle needed to resort to racist caricatures of comments, the literal same things that would be thrown against her in an instant if she ever stopped dancing for the Republican Party.
Bitch, you said that. And now that Daquan has put out the library glass, I think I need to put mine on as well. Girl, what you said wasn't a read or shade. This was just you spewing hate at a person that you are nowhere near on the same level. You thought you ate, but your plate is still very much so full. But since you thought you could use your library card, even though it was declined due to lack of class and skill set, let me show you what real reading looks like. So, I don't know what part of Leslie Jones's success made you feel so insecure and so hateful that you felt the need to resort to ad hominem fallacies to get your point across, but it's giving playground bully. I don't know. Maybe it's the fact that Leslie Jones was nominated for a Primetime Emmy Award for her work in Saturday Night Live, and your only claim to fame at the moment is being a low-budget Candace Owens. Maybe it's
not
the
low
fact
budget
that in 2017, Leslie Jones was named one of the most 100 people in the world that are most influential by Time Magazine only a year after your book was published. And 6 years later, those 43 reviews are hanging on strong, aren't they, girl? Or, Daquan, maybe it's the fact that she realized that her job description on her Twitter bio is actually misspelled. For you, Shamika, the word commentator should be spelled Sellout.
Ooh.
Now, girl, did you see what I did with those reads? I never had to once insult your appearance, compare you to a fucking slave or animal. It's because, unlike you, I can dislike a person who is the same race as me without having to reinforce racism in the process. One thing I learned in therapy is that oftentimes when people like you tear down others in such a visceral, nasty way, it's because they've already said those very same things to themselves in the mirror or have been called worse by someone else. It's called projection, sweetheart. And I'm so sorry to whoever hurt you so badly that the only way that you can feel better about yourself is by spreading that same pain that you endured to others. But the truth is, in the words of the Black mother of Hollywood, Jennifer Lewis, if you sit and shit long enough, it stops smelling. So come the fuck out of there while you still can. Because they've brainwashed you into believing that if you align yourself with white supremacist ideology, that this will somehow offer you a protection against it. But we're here to tell you that in the eyes of the white supremacists that you align yourself with and that you co-sign with your insults against Leslie Jones, you will always be a Black woman, which means they will always see you as beneath them. Now, I don't know, you probably won't hear this or see this, but I do hope that the next time a Black person sees you, they take out a picture with the flash on just to see if you're in the sunken place. Get out, Shamika. Go ahead and get out of there. But Daquon, I want to pass it back to you.
And that is how you clear.
But Daquon, I gotta ask you, bitch, like, why do you think the pick-me's are so vocal with their hate nowadays, bitch? What is going on? What's in the fucking water, bitch?
I think we are getting into a place where American society is becoming so polarized that people feel like they need to pick sides. There was a time when so many of the hateful rhetoric that people spew now, they did in private back then. But then they saw a leader who did it all in public and had nothing done to him. And they felt emboldened by it. They felt empowered by having a white supremacist in one of the biggest positions in this country. And so now we see a lot more people being like, pick me, because we are slowly but surely approaching a peak when it comes to all of the racial tension in this country. We've seen time and time again how it ebbs and flows, and there's these moments of big racial tension, and we're hitting another boiling point soon. So I think people are trying to pick their side. They're trying to get on the side that they want to be on. And frankly, it's annoying to deal with. Like, we know that they're never actually going to be picked because white supremacists are not looking for anybody else other than other white, cis, straight men, white supremacists like themselves. So that's all I have to say about that, because honestly, it's giving nothing. It's really giving nothing.
It's strange to me how, you know, people don't recognize that when you give attention to hate like Candace Owens and Christian Walker and stuff like that, that these people remain relevant. You know, and what I've had to learn, especially on my TikTok journey and Instagrams and stuff like that, is that these people strive sometimes specifically to get the hate or anger of the Black community, or to get the anger of, you know, a marginalized community, because they know that that will translate into money. Because if you are duetting a video of a person, you're giving them clout. If you are commenting on that video, you're giving them clout. If you are saving a video to respond to later, you are giving them clout. So it's such a fine line you have to walk with responding to hate, because oftentimes people use that as their currency in the world. There are so many people, I won't name any names, but you know what I'm talking about, who are famous for literally just appropriating Black culture and being culture vultures. That's their whole brand. And they are famous for it. They are making millions of dollars from it. And it just frustrates me so badly that we still give these people platforms. We still give these people voices. Like I said before, I wouldn't know who the Shamika person was had she not said what she said. And she did that specifically to get the white people who are racist, the white people who are like, oh, you're a good black, you're a good black person. You know what I'm saying? This very that kind of energy, and that's exactly what she's looking for. She knows that we're not her target audience. She knows that the black community is not her target audience, or at least not as a whole. She's looking at specific peoples, the coonery, the Uncle Ruckuses in the community to be on her side and to get all the white people to be like, oh yeah, she's the good black. We'll keep her around for now. For now. Right. And that for now is a lot louder than people think.
Oh, 1000%. We live in a time where, especially with social media, how it is now, everybody is gunning for that engagement. Regardless of how you get it, engagement is engagement. Mm-hmm. It kind of goes back to the older notions of all press is press. There's no such thing as bad press. Yeah. Because at the end of the day, if your name is in headlines, if your name is being talked about all throughout social media, if you're constantly being tagged in certain things, that gives you engagement. That gives you a platform. It gives you even more of a platform than you would have normally, because people who wouldn't like the type of things that you preach are now being fed whatever hateful rhetoric that you are spewing. And so it's really important, like you said, that we don't really engage these people that much or give them more of a platform that they need. Of course, it's important to, kind of dismiss hate and, keep the conversation going so that people don't see things like this and think that it's right. But there's a fine line between, that occasional, okay, I have time today, I'm going to clap back, and consistently clapping back time after time after time. And frankly, it's the times when you don't respond that are the most powerful. Like, I really remember when Christian Walker walked up to Kehlani at a Starbucks and they were just unamused. They were just smiling, just like looking unbothered, and giving Christian Walker nothing. And that is true power. When you have the power to make people mad and you can just stay unbothered.
I think, and I completely agree. I think that there is a fine line. I want to make sure that y'all know too. Also, this is the only time, one and only time we ever gonna talk about Shamika Michelle on this show.
Right. I'm going back to not knowing who she is.
Oh yeah, I don't know who that is anymore. But what are we talking about again? Anyway, but like, it frustrates me oftentimes too that like when you see people like this, once again, there's a reason why I have this tattoo on my forearm where it's a Maya Angelou quote that says, when someone shows you who they are, believe them the first time. And I got that tattooed on me specifically because of the fact that when a person like a Shamika or like a Christian Walker or like a Candace Owens, when they say something that you know for a fact that they are aware that what they're saying is bullshit, they are aware that what they're saying is inflammatory. See, it's one thing to make a mistake. It's one thing to make a mistake. It's one thing to say something accidental, a slip of the tongue or something like that. It's another thing to sit down and know. If you look at the video of her talking about this and when she said it, you could tell she was reading off of something. So she not only thought this out, read it over and was like, yeah, I ate that up, because she knew what she was doing. She wanted the attention and she got it. And that's why I say with these type of people, when they show you for the first time who they are, let it go. You said what you said, move forward, because these people are only going to keep doing shit. And I know for a fact that this woman right here is going to do something else. It's happening again somewhere else. Because she wants that attention. She wants that negativity. That there are people like her who thrive in that. And I realized something too when I was also watching all this stuff unfold about this. She released a statement on her YouTube telling that she dusted off after years of disuse.
She's got her channel?
Yeah, I know, right? And she put her book that's been out of commission for 6 years just about back in her bio and stuff like that too. And there was so many things. So I could tell that she did this specifically to get that attention to the show Fearless and to get herself and her brand known, because now, regardless of how we feel about what she said, we know who she is.
Right.
Well, at least for now. At least for now. I don't know who that is after I say that after this episode, but
Right. Once this recording stops, don't know.
We're
But
back to not knowing who she is. But I think
I-
that it's just the facts are like she did this specifically to get her name out. And I think that that is what you have to recognize with these type of people, is that the only mission is to piss people off. That's it.
Exactly. And I also want to, before we move on, because we can't just talk about this Black woman without talking about the Black man who created this platform and enabled it, because we are equal opportunity readers. Everybody can catch this smoke. Because Mr. Jason Whitlock, you knew exactly what you were doing. You set it up by being like, I'm not going to talk about appearance just so your little co-host could do it. And I just want you to know that that is the weakest thing that you can possibly do. You are letting a Black woman take the fall for you, take the fall for all of the thoughts that you wanted to say, but you were like, you know what? I can't handle that criticism. So I'm going to let her take it. And frankly, you are a disgusting human being. Point blank, period.
Evil men succeed when good men do nothing.
Say that again.
Evil men and evil women succeed when good men and good women do nothing. When people sit on the sidelines and watch people spew evil and spew hate and spew nastiness and just go, that is just as bad as you saying exactly what they said.
It is officially Emmy season, and one show that has stood out in media headlines is Abbott Elementary, the ABC hit comedy created, produced, and starring Quinta Brunson, that follows Brunson as a teacher in a fictional, predominantly Black school in her hometown of Philadelphia. Brunson earned 3 Emmy nominations for Outstanding Comedy Series, Lead Actress in a Comedy, and Writing for a Comedy Series for the pilot episode, making her not only the first Black woman to earn 3 nominations in the comedy categories in the same year, but also the youngest Black woman ever nominated in the comedy acting category at age 32. In addition to Brunson's nomination, show co-stars Sheryl Lee Ralph and Janelle James are nominated for Best Supporting Actress in a Comedy Series, and Tyler James Williams is nominated for Best Supporting Actor in a Comedy. The show has also earned an Emmy nomination for its casting. However, just a day after the Emmy nominations announcement, writer Christine Davis filed a lawsuit against Brunson and ABC, alleging that Brunson and ABC knowingly and illegally used Davis's work to create the Abbott Elementary television show. Davis claims that Brunson and ABC ripped off her show concept this school year, which she submitted a script to 2 executives at Blue Park Production in July of 2020, and the executives pitched the idea to Hulu, but nothing came out of it. Davis is suing for all of the profit that ABC and Brunson made off of Abbott Elementary so far. So, Andre, I want to know, what are your thoughts on the allegations of copyright infringement?
So I don't know much about the behind the scenes or how firm the foundation of this lawsuit is, as the details are still being fleshed out and the case is still being built. But what I will say is this. To any young artist out there in the world that have TV shows, movies, and books they have written, keep a paper trail, or because it's 2022, a digital trail. Keep receipts, keep timestamps, do your research on copyright laws, and make sure that you learn everything that you need to do in order to protect your work. Also, artists need to understand that you can't copyright an idea that you have not yet made into a tangible work. Like Stephanie Meyer copyrighted her version of vampires and werewolves, but she can't copyright the idea of vampires and werewolves. Stephen King copyrighted his version of a fire starter, but he can't copyright the idea of a character having pyrokinetic abilities. This is why copyright infringement is such a difficult thing to prove without receipts to back it up, and proof that the accused person knowingly infringed on your copyright. There's also the
Right.
fact that sometimes, people can come up with the same ideas and even base stories off of ideas posed in other stories. But because there are just enough key differences, it's not considered copyright infringement. For example, let's look at Twilight versus 50 Shades of Grey and Friends versus Living Single. Now, even though we know for a fact that 50 Shades of Grey was originally a fan fiction of Twilight, E.L. James created enough differences in her work to escape the copyright laws. The same is true of Living Single. Even though we all know for a fact that Warner Brothers Studio fully wanted a show just like Living Single, but with a white cast, and that's how Friends was born, they escaped the copyright laws based solely on the fact that they created just enough differences to get away with it. Also, let's not forget that school-based sitcom shows with teachers trying to create change with a slightly off principle is not exactly new territory. I mean, we've got the Steve Harvey Show or Mr. Iglesias or even the short-lived CBS Bad Teacher, to name a few that followed that same format. I think that what sets these shows apart is the narrative voice of the writer and the intention of the show, just like in the case of Abbott Elementary. From what I can tell from the lawsuit details, there are supposed similarities, but I'm not a lawyer and I don't know the specifics of how close the stories are in character structure and plot, or who came up with the idea first, or the story first, or who even copyrighted the story first. I mean, Quinta Brunson pitched the pilot in 2020, and then Christine Davis registered the copyright for her show that she alleges Abbott Elementary was based on during the same year. And then Davis alleges that she pitched the script back in 2018, but we also don't know how long Brunson has been sitting on Abbott Elementary or how long her story has been registered with the Copyright Office. I mean, there are just so many fucking variables and so many fucking factors to consider in this case. It's all just a hot mess, but I'm just hoping that this lawsuit is baseless or just some unsuccessful ploy to take down a Black woman, and Quinta Brunson Abbott Elementary can continue to keep breaking new ground and making history, because if she knowingly stole someone else's idea or someone in production forgot to cross their T's and dot their I's, it's going to be a shitstorm for everyone involved. I'm just hoping that however this case turns out, that the truth comes out, and hopefully that truth will be to clear and put some respect on Quinta Brunson's name.
Hello.
But Daquon, what about you?
I completely agree. I think that, when I came across this story, I was like, oh, this is like a topic. Like, there's so much going on with it that's so complicated and detailed and complex that it honestly could be its own entire episode. But I think, like you said, I'm not a lawyer. I was a pre-law student for like a semester in college. I took like one class related to law. So I'm not going to sit here and try to litigate this, because I don't have that range and I don't pretend to have that range. But from what I do know, copyright, like you said, is a very, very hard thing to prove. You have to prove very specifically that they had your script. They took line by line by line parts of your script, because you can't just say, oh, well, like my story was revolving around this progressive teacher trying to change the school system. Like, that's not something that you can really claim to be yours and completely yours, because
Yeah.
A, it's so many people's lived experiences, and B, like, it's such a common concept. It's an idea, not an actual tangible thing. Or even just the mockumentary type genre. Like, there's so many shows that follow the genre, like The Office and all of those different things, where it cuts to this like kind of documentary type thing. So even the format of the show isn't something unique and original to you. So it really comes down to what are the specific kernels of evidence that you can prove that they took your script and reused it line by line, or have exact characters with intense details, not just a progressive character trying to change or a wacky principle. Like, what exactly about the character is so detailed and so specific to your original idea that it cannot be replicated. So I think in terms of it, I agree. Like, I love Abbott Elementary. What Abbott Elementary did is something that cannot be replicated by just anybody. And I think that that adds a level of what it is to it, because I feel like Quinta Brunson has such a powerful voice in it. Like, you can tell how much she cares about this show, because we know that her mother was a public school teacher. The name of the show is dedicated to one of her former teachers. So she has had a hand in this and had so much to put into it. Not to mention everything that she's done in terms of literally raising money for supplies for teachers and doing a lot to take this platform that Abbott Elementary has and really give back to the teachers that she dedicates this to. But I think that, like you said before, I'm hoping that this, isn't just this baseless thing that's just like trying to tear, or I'm hoping that it's this baseless thing that's
Yeah.
just trying to tear down a Black woman's success, because I feel like having such a show receive such acclaim can really signal to Hollywood that this is how you do it. When you
Yeah.
want representation, you do it like this, because it's a great show. And I think all of its nominations are deserved. And frankly, the timing, I'm not going to lie, is a little sus to me. It's a little suspicious.
Yeah. What do you think that the Abbott Elementary will like inspire major networks to take chances on shows written and produced by BIPOC people?
I think, it really is going to depend on how this plays out.
Yeah.
I think that if, it's able to get the Emmy awards that it deserves, then yes, because it does something that a lot of shows hasn't have, and it employs a level of authenticity. The characters feel fresh, they feel like actual people, and you have a network that is really taking a chance on a Black woman, because let's be real, we don't see a lot of shows that are not only written by but produced and created by Black women in this entertainment industry. So having a show like Abbott Elementary on such a high level could be that, wake up call for Hollywood to be like, you know what? Let's do more of this. We want more of this. It's working, so let's continue to do it.
Yeah, I think it's definitely a step in the right direction. But again,
Mhm.
we've already seen this time and again where people of color and Black people show these executives that we will show up for stories made for, by us, and starring us countless times, and they still keep fucking it up. Like,
Ooh.
we're definitely heading in the right way, but we've still got a long ways to go until this is the standard. Like, I mean, we're not gonna act like Sneakerella and What If Miles Morales wasn't Thor. It still happened, very much so.
I know
And
you just did not say Sneakerella. Oh, you had to bring that back to my mind. I wanted to forget about Sneakerella just like I want to forget about Shamika Michelle.
but it's really frustrating to think this way, but it's sad because I don't know, Hollywood is still so stuck in its ways, and they still
Hmm.
don't think that we are that we are talented enough to tell our own stories. And it's just like they're seeing now that it's happening, but it's like, are they going to start giving us those? Are they going to start putting us in the writers' rooms? Are they going to start putting us in the director chairs? We have seen countless times Jordan Peele's success, Kiki Palmer's success. We look at Quinta Brunson's success. We look at Shonda Rhimes' success, and we look at all of these people who make shows about Black people and having led Black-led shows and being in these positions and showing that Black people or people of color are gonna support story. Even Shang-Chi, by the same thing, same concept, where it's like when we have leads in these roles, people will show up for it. But Hollywood still just does not or has not gotten out of the mindset that we are not enough.
Mm-hmm. Right.
You
I
know, and it
completely
just,
agree. It's something where, like you said, it's a step in the right direction. It has the possibility of doing more, but it really is going to depend on if Hollywood is actually going to listen this time, as opposed to the countless other times that we've seen this type of success.
yeah, and I think that what really gets me about this is that, you know, we have proven time and time again. I mean, even we look back on the earlier 2000 shows like Martin, All of Us, like, you know, these really big popping black sitcoms that people really came out. I mean, black people, we watched the fuck out them fucking shows. And people
Still to this
still
day.
to this day, reruns all throughout. And we're still not seeing that same. I mean, even now, I don't know about you, Daquon, but that same boom of black television is not as popping as it was back in the early 2000s. And I'm like, what the fuck is going on? We've shown y'all that we show up for it. So why am I not seeing it everywhere else? And that also could be the fact that the streaming services are taking over or whatever and stuff like that. So I do take that into account. But I also look at the fact of how, you know, a lot of these times we see the shows that are streamlined and stuff like that have their token black character or token person of color character, but they never lead the show. They're always a secondary to the main white protagonist. And it's just like,
Right.
come on, y'all. Do better, bitch.
Now, the table is always hot with current events and social issues, but sometimes the heat can get a little intense. Let's turn the temperature down, take a breather, and get into this week's topic cool down. Andre, what are you bringing to the table this week?
So I wanted to ask you, Daquon, to cool down the table. What do you think makes someone a good storyteller?
If they tell a good story.
You know what? I'm not doing. All right, that's the end of the show, y'all.
I'm kidding. I'm kidding. I think what makes somebody a good storyteller, it's multifaceted and multi-leveled. I think first is the voice. Do
Mhm.
you have this, robust and authentic voice? We talk about authenticity all the time, and it's not that you are telling stories that are strictly your lived experience or something that's very close to it, but can you really embody the voice of the characters that you create in the lives that they live? I think another part of that is, are you willing to do the research for that story? Like, are you really ready to get into the trenches? Because writing a story isn't easy. Writing a book,
Mm-mm.
writing a play, movie, like we know that's not the easiest thing to do. It
Yeah.
takes countless amounts of hours of planning, writing, rewriting,
And
checking
rewriting
on
and
it,
rewriting and rewriting.
and rewriting and getting readers and getting their feedback and
Yeah.
making sure that you're not doing anything problematic and all of this to really create a story. So it takes a lot, and you need to be able to put in that work. But I think the final thing that makes a good storyteller is somebody who is able to really create something that speaks to a lot of different people. I
Mm-hmm.
was a creative writing major for a point in college, and I think that I've encountered so many people that can speak to the kind of literarity of very into high literature. But I think a great storyteller is somebody who can connect to, PhD in English literature, but also just the everyday person and everybody in between. Somebody that can capture so many different voices and communicate it in a way that makes sense and people can connect with regardless of their background.
Yeah, I think that what really makes a person a good storyteller, in my opinion, is having a core, you know, having a
Mhm.
message of some kind. I think that, you know, a lot of times, you know, even in comedies and dramas and every genre of writing or every genre of storytelling, the one thing that unifies them all is that there is a core in the story. And I think I've talked about this before on my TikTok, but like, you know, a lot of these show, especially when it comes to the fantasy genre and when it comes to that kind of
Mhm.
stuff, is that a lot of times what you run into or you see a lot of times is that people in TV shows and movies will oftentimes rely so heavily on the CGI, or they'll rely so heavily on the actors just being really good at it and just creating something there and just creating a story when it's like there's nothing there. They can't make shit up that's not there, whatever. But I think that what I've noticed that, you know, really breaks it down is that if you can tell me the core of what your story is, if you can tell me that, I think that that is what makes you a good storyteller. I think being able to
Mhm.
capture a specific type of experience, whether it be a sisterhood, or whether the core be family, or whether the core be self-acceptance, or whether the core be, loving yourself, there is a piece of the story that if you strip away all of the magics and all of the CGIs and all of the famous actors and stuff like that, if you can put anybody in that position and your story and your vision is still seen and still heard, that to me is a good story. I think a lot of times people forget about that part of writing, is that they just want to, make something fun or make something whatever. And it's kind of like, yes, you can do that, but what is the core of this? Why are you telling the story? And if you can't answer that question, then I don't think you're telling a story. Doesn't mean that you're good or bad.
Mhm.
I don't think you're telling a story. And I think that, when we watch these, especially some of the most successful storytellers, is that, you see that they understand they understand exactly who their characters are, what they want, what they're striving for, and what the story is, even without all of the other stuff in it. And I think that also what makes you a good storyteller is if someone can read your story and not just envision it, but also to feel these people as if they're walking right in front of them right now. I think that there is a level of authenticity, even when we watch shows that are ridiculous and like, super heavy comedies that, could never happen. There is something that unifies the story. There's something that grounds it. And I think that that
Right.
grounding element, to me, understanding how to implant that in your story in the most ridiculous, outlandish story, that to me is what really, creates an amazing storyteller.
Yeah, I think a great way of thinking about it is comparing writing to baking, for example. When
Mm-hmm.
you bake a cake, if your ingredients are rotten, no matter how you accessorize and add icing and all of these different sprinkles and everything like that on top of the cake, the core of your cake is still rotten. Like it's going to
Exactly.
taste bad. It could crumble all onto itself. Like there could be all of these flaws on the inside that you can't fix by just slapping icing over it and calling it a day. And something that I've heard time and time again in creative writing workshops is show, don't tell. Like you can't just tell your story, show your story. And that doesn't come from CGI and all of these different explosions. But like you said, that comes from somebody being able to really visualize themselves with this character and see what exactly is that core of the story instead of you kind of beating it over somebody's head and doing like these very heavy-handed notions throughout, but just really being able to tell a tight and concise story that people can just see themselves being a part of.
Exactly, or even more so, even adding on to that too. I think that, like you said, when you make it in the back to the cake metaphor, when you are making a cake and you're dressing it up, no one's saying that you have to have the same flavor. No one's saying that you have to have the same designs. No one's saying that, but the core of your cake needs to taste like a cake.
Right.
It still needs to be a cake. And I think a lot of times people oftentimes don't understand too. I think that another element of it is what makes a good storyteller is having a story to tell. And that sounds kind of, basic, but it's just like if you're just making a story just to make one, that to me is not creating a story. It's just making up some shit. Whereas when you feel this story deep in your soul, when you feel like you want to do all the work and you want to do all the rewriting, I
Hmm.
mean, that takes fucking dedication. And so
Right.
you have to have a story worthy of telling to be that fucking dedicated to it.
Exactly.
Now, so many children grow up never knowing the full scope of what their culture has contributed to society and history. So it's time for a change. Let's take a pause, rewind, and remind the world just how we did that. Now, My We Did That celebrates the National Museum of African American Music, the only museum of its kind dedicated to preserving and celebrating the history of Black music in America. Born out of a proposal from the Nashville Area Chamber of Commerce in 2002 as a way to celebrate and preserve African American influence on music and provide residents and visitors with diverse cultural offerings, it broke ground in early 2017 and officially opened in 2021. It is the premier global destination for music lovers of all generations and inspires, educates, and transforms your appreciation of American music. And they exist with the sole mission of educating the world, preserving the legacy, and celebrating the central role African Americans play in creating the American soundtrack. For more information regarding the National Museum of African American Music, visit nmaam.org.
Because let's be honest, name an American music genre that has not been influenced by Black people in this country.
Quickly.
You can't. And
you
I think
can't.
it's crazy when I learned about this type of stuff in college, and it was just like, why didn't I know this before? Like, this is so interesting to think about. So I highly recommend, if you ever have like a weekend, find the nearest African American whatever museum. Like, go to this African American music museum, go to the National Museum of African American Culture, go to like the Smithsonian's African American cultural centers, all of that, because you will learn so much. And I think fittingly on the topic of music, My We Did That comes from an article from blackpast.org where we learned that jazz great Dizzy Gillespie had a long and distinguished musical career as a trumpeter, composer, and band leader. Unlike many jazz musicians whose lives were tragically cut short, Gillespie's career spanned the 1930s to the 1980s, from the big band swing era of the 1930s through 1940s bebop, the Afro-Cuban jazz of the 1950s, to the recording in 1989 when he was 72 of his United Nations band performance live at Royal Festival Hall. Gillespie is one of the most influential musicians in the history of jazz and is considered one of the founders of modern jazz, and with Charlie Parker is credited with the invention of bebop. By the late 1940s, Gillespie had begun leading a band that combined bebop with Latin elements. He was the first jazz musician to give a major role in his music to an Afro-Cuban sound and fuse Brazilian and other Caribbean as well as Afro-Cuban influences with jazz. In his later years, he became an American ambassador of music, leading State Department sponsored tours to Latin America and the Middle East.
Motherfucking I mean, name one area we haven't invented. Like, at this point,
Quickly.
Like, bitch, we are fucking everywhere, like everywhere.
This
and it's
is why
just
we
so
call it black
crazy.
magic.
Not for nothing. They don't call it that for nothing. Like, it's crazy just how much. I mean, it's not crazy because I mean we are the shit. But it's just it's crazy that we don't know how much we have shaped America, how much we have shaped so much of culture in the world.
Right.
Like, bitch, we eat. We stay eating.
The plate is cleaned.
Now, as always, Thank you all so much for watching, and keep the conversation going down in the comment box below. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, and if you are listening to us on our podcast, please rate and review on whatever platform you're using. You can also follow our podcast on Instagram and TikTok at the Melanin Margin for updates of new content.
And if you'd like to follow each of us, our handles are at Daquon MUE.
And at Andre Talks a Lot, baby.
Now we will see you all next time on the Melanin Margin, where our goal is always to bring the marginalized to the spotlight in any way we can. Goodbye now.